Countless colorful stripes draw the viewer's gaze straight to infinity. Seemingly random patterns evoke a sense of harmony and calm. However, as you get closer, they blur into discomfort again and again. In this video, I explain my creative process in transforming Gerhard Richter's work Strip into music and video animation. In my opinion, the image has four basic characteristics. Uniformity. The stripes are perfectly straight. They are unchanged in shape and color and seem to go on forever. Harmony. The color combinations are diverse but appear harmonious and radiate calm. Blurriness. The numerous stripes cannot be grasped by the eye. They repeatedly blur and cause discomfort. Coincidence. Richter is fascinated by chance. The idea and design of his stripe paintings are based on this. I wanted all that to be reflected. Now I will show you how I went about turning the image into music. I'd recommend switching to headphones so you can better hear the sound changes I am about to play. The first step was to reflect the uniformity of the image or stripes. To achieve this, I created minimalistic sounds based on sine waves. Unlike other waveforms, such as square or sawtooth, sine waves have no overtones and therefore sound simple and pretty boring. Let me show you how I made the sounds more interesting with small changes using my two bass sounds as examples. The lower bass, bass 1, is generated by a single oscillator. The sound shape is a sine wave, to which I have simply added another partial tone and some noise. The noise is randomly modified by two LFOs. When I deactivate the noise and remove the partial tone, a pure sine wave is heard. My small changes add a little more color. Again, a comparison without the change and with it. A reduced and even sound that still sounds interesting. The sound changes are a bit more noticeable with the second bass sound. It plays an octave above bass 1, and here the sound is also generated by sine waves. In this case there are two oscillators, oscillator A and B. I added another partial tone to oscillator A. However, the character of the sound is created here by the vocoder effect, which is also randomly modified by two LFOs. First, I play back the sound without the changes and the effect. Now I add the change again and switch on the vocoder effect. As you can hear and also see in the analyzer, the frequency spectrum is expanded and also shifted by the vocoder. Again, a comparison without and with. It is actually unusual for two basses to play at the same time. However, due to the reduced sound and the distribution of frequencies, it is possible here. When I play both basses simultaneously, you can clearly hear how the sounds blend together without interfering. The To further enhance the aspect of uniformity, I use envelope curves without dynamics. This can best be demonstrated with another sound. Like bass 1 and 2, the tenor is also based on sine waves. Here the sound is also made more interesting by various effects, but it remains simple and uniform. The progression of the sound, that is its envelope curve, is characterized by a fast attack and release time. In the sustain phase in between, the sound remains at its maximum. You could say the sound is either on or off. If I change the envelope so that it rises more slowly, jumps back immediately when it reaches its maximum, and then fades out over several seconds, the sound appears much more dynamic. But it does not reflect the uniformity of the stripes. This becomes even clearer when I play the video animations that are directly controlled by the sound, including its envelope. Again, here's a comparison. First with the dynamic envelope, and now with a static or uniform one. The color patterns in the painting are diverse, harmonious and radiate calm. To translate this into music, I use tones that are largely based on an A minor chord. The uniformity of the stripes is thus also harmoniously reflected, with random tone combinations creating subtle tonal nuances and thus providing variety without much movement. As a counterpoint and further loosening of the static sounds of bass 1, bass 2 and tenor, which form the harmonic basis of the track, I created a sound that sets occasional impulses and thus lightens up the soundscape. I have named it Alto 2 here. The sound is controlled by clips of varying lengths, creating a certain unpredictability. Its pitch is also randomly altered by modulating the chord effect, adding further variety. This gives the sound presence without making it too prominent. The categorization and naming of the sounds according to the 4 vocal ranges, that is bass, tenor, alto and soprano, as in a choir, helps me to organize the sounds into different frequency ranges and maintain an overview when composing. Apart from that, I try to achieve a balanced overall sound in my tracks by using as few sounds as possible and giving each one a clearly defined space in which it can be perceived. Another important aspect of the image is the blurring that it repeatedly creates when looking at it. The countless stripes cannot be captured by the eye, so they blur again and again. This evoked a feeling of unease in me. Musically, I translated this into various effects for all the sounds. However, this is particularly evident in the Alto 1 and soprano sounds. Alto 1 is a pad-like sound with an envelope that is continuously modified. The sound either swells slowly or very quickly. However, it always breaks off abruptly. In combination with the autopan effect, which is also randomly modified by an LFO, this creates a sound that seems intangible and represents the moment when the stripes blur. The soprano voice reflects the discomfort that this causes. The notes played are extremely high. They sound more like a squeak than a note. This frequency range alone is uncomfortable for our ears. I have further enhanced this effect by slightly blurring or detuning the notes. Again, without the effects. And with the effects. Gerhard Richter once said, "Sometimes it worried me a lot, and I saw it as a personal flaw that I was so dependent on chance." Richter repeatedly emphasizes how important chance is in his artistic creative process. Accordingly, I wanted to reflect this aspect on several musical levels. The numerous clips are played randomly, constantly creating new combination of tones and sounds. I used over 30 LFOs to continuously create random sound modulations. Some are rather subtle, while others are clearly audible. The LFOs directly change the setting of the operators, that is, the sound generators. They influence effect components or modulate the effects themselves. In addition, the video animations are also controlled randomly. For this, I used another 30 LFOs. I will go into this in more detail later in the video. The combination of all these changes ensures that the piece of music is recreated at every moment and continues indefinitely. However, this does not result in random chaos. Instead, there's a certain order to the sounds and video elements, limiting changes to a specific range. This is important, as otherwise the result would simply be chaos, which would be aesthetically unappealing and therefore not in line with the painting. Finally, I turned the individual sounds into video animations. For this, I used the application VideoSync. It is a small piece of software that can be integrated directly into Ableton Live, allowing sounds, MIDI notes, envelopes, or other sound parameters to directly generate and/or modulate video material. The video material is therefore controlled directly by the sound. The tools and effects are very intuitive and offer endless possibilities. For most of the sounds, I used VideoSync's Simpler as the image source. It looks similar to the Simpler in Ableton Live and it works pretty much the same way. The only difference is that it plays video files or images instead of audio samples. At first, I experimented with short video clips that I had shot at the exhibition. However, they seemed too restless to me and were sometimes too shaky. They simply didn't match the music. So I ended up using a frontal photograph as the image source and added it to Simpler. When you play a note, the entire photo is displayed. To make this more interesting and diverse, I used various effects and combined them with LFO modulation. The basic video animation for almost all sounds is generated by the crop effect. It ensures that only a section of the image is visible. The dimensions of the section are continuously changed by 2 LFOs. Another LFO modulates the offset parameter, causing the image section to move. In order to distinguish the video animations of the individual sounds from each other and to pick up on their individual sonic characteristics, I made different settings to the crop effect and added further individual effects. This not only makes the sounds visually distinct from each other, but also makes the video animations more interesting and varied. Base 1 plays the lowest frequencies. Accordingly, the cutouts are particularly wide. Also, I added a mirror effect to make the stripes appear to move towards or away from each other. The sections are less wide for base 2, as it plays an octave above base 1. The movements in its frequency spectrum caused by the vocoder are picked up by an ISF effect and transferred to the color scheme. Similar to the sound effect, the video effect is also rather subtle. If I increase the effect amount, its impact becomes more noticeable. Now I reduce the effect amount again and play the video animations once more without the effects. And with the effect. The tenor has both wide and narrow sections. However, they are significantly shorter than those of the base 1 and the base 2. As the tenor sometimes plays polyphonically, I added an ISF effect to multiply and randomly distribute the stripes. For the alto 2, I selected a section that spanned the entire width of the image. Although it consists of only a short sound impulse, its accents bring the entire soundscape to life, filling the spaces between the other sounds with their slow decay. The image sections are very narrow for the soprano. I used 2 displacement effects to thin out individual color tones slightly, causing the stripes to dissolve and appear distorted. This is the visual equivalent of unpleasant high frequencies. An ISF effect then distributes the stripes randomly across the entire screen. The Alto 1 is the only sound without an image source. It represents the blurring of the stripes and controls the bloom blur effect on the master via an envelope follower. This means that it affects all sounds and their video animations, blurring them in sync with the sound. Chance also plays an important role in the video animations. Another 30 LFOs vary image sections constantly, generating movements and modulating effects. This creates ever-changing visualizations of the sounds that continue indefinitely, just as the image draws the viewer into infinity. That concludes my interpretation of Gerhard Richter's work strip, which is part of his exhibition 100 Works for Berlin. It can be viewed at the Neue Nationalgalerie until 2026. If you are interested in more of my music or work, you will find some links in the video description. Thank you for watching.